Texas Stadium in Irving, Texas, a special Thursday edition of ABC's NFL Monday Night Football. The Minnesota Vikings against the Dallas Cowboys.
20 seconds to air. Stand by, all cameras. Stand by in videotape. Stand by slow-mo. Stand by to open your mics on the field. Stand by in graphics. Ready with your opening supers. Stand by the announcers in the booth, please. And roll tape. 3, 2, 1. Take tape.
Suppose a fortune teller had told you that during the first half of the '78 NFL season, those Redskins would go unbeaten for 6 games. That the Giants and Jets would both be only 1 game out of first place in their respective divisions. That only 2 teams in the entire league would have a better record than Bart Starr's Green Bay Packers. If the prophet told you all that, you would have told him to have his eyes checked, but his foresight was 20/20. For the first half of the season has bounced around as crazily. Clearly, the passing game has been honed to a razor's edge, but the rules change that invited more throwing has extracted its toll on NFL quarterbacks. Despite the injuries, Terry Bradshaw told us last Monday night he thinks the quarterbacks are protected enough. His teammate Jack Lambert sarcastically suggested quarterbacks should wear dresses, but injuries have ruined several seasons. Kenny Anderson, the passing hand damaged before the season even began. The Bengals, as a result, 0-8. Bert Jones fell twice with shoulder injuries. The Colts 3 games behind the pass. And controversy, a trademark of the first half of the season. It began with what the Chargers call the immaculate deception. The 3 fumbled forward play by Stabler and the Raiders for the winning touchdown against San Diego. You know, the officials have to make their decisions immediately. They don't have the advantage of slow-mo and instant replay. And so, in the Tampa Bay, Minnesota game, the officials ruled that Minnesota's Kevin Miller touched that football. Look at it again. The Buccaneers were allowed to recover Miller's alleged muff, went in for a clinching score. Then on the opening kickoff of sudden death, Cleveland at Pittsburgh, Larry Anderson getting the kickoff. Watch closely. He went down. The knee touched the ground, but no contact made with a Cleveland player. He got up. Then hit right there. The apparent fumble ruled not a fumble. The ball had been declared dead. And then this kind of play typifying the whole first half of the season. Spectacular in its nature. Keith Moody. Controversy a part of it, sure, but great plays, scrambled standings, missing quarterbacks, mayhem. As a result, well, the division races are the thing to look forward to now. Some experts put Dallas in the Super Bowl before the season even began. But those experts didn't reckon with a psyched-up Washington Redskins team that knocked them off in a Monday night matchup. And the Redskins took a 2-game lead in the NFC East. It was a 9-5 victory as the Redskins were all over the place on defense. And with juiced-up offense, Washington, to the elation of its coach, Jack Bardee, ran up a 6-game win streak to start the season. Typifying that kind of offense, this play, the flea flicker. And Theismann wound up throwing the Danny Bugs for a touchdown. But then Washington surprised by the Eagles and by this team, the Giants. Doug Coder on a 31-yard burst, breaking that tackle by Houston and that one by Lavender. And the Giants beat the Redskins. Giants trail the Redskins and the Cowboys by only 1 game. Bart Starr is Green Bay Packers, the most surprising team of all, led by quarterback Dave Whitehurst from Furman and wide receiver Jimmy Lofton, number 80, from Stanford. And so the Pack leads the NFC in scoring, and they lead the NFC in quarterback sacks, too. They've been doing it all. But the Pack itself came a cropper just last Sunday against the Vikes and Fran Tarkenton and that man Ahmed Rashad. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, meanwhile, surprised the Vikes during the season, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are very much in the thick of things in their division. The New York Jets, meantime, have been almost incredible in terms of surprise. They lost their brilliant young quarterback, Richard Todd. You'll see it right here. Ball popping out of his hands, but even when they lost Richard Todd, they did not come apart. They found another quarterback, an unsung youngster wearing number 17, Matt Robinson. And with a passing arm like this and some clever play calling designed to meet the opponent on his own terms, the Jets are in the thick of things at 5-3. Miami's Don Shula has had his share of tough luck. Bob Greasy out before the season even began, but number 10, Don Strock, doing a good job. And Delvin Williams, the leading rusher in the league, doing sensational work, as evidenced by this extraordinary run against the New York Jets. But even with Greasy back, the Dolphins ran into the red-hot New England Patriots, and New England beat Miami in a showdown for first place in the division for the 6th time in 8 weeks. The Pats didn't know if they would win or lose late in the game. 4 times they've won. That was Harris Ivory with the game-winning touchdown against Miami. Twice they have lost, once in a Monday night thriller when the team scored 41 points in the final quarter. The man of the moment, Joe Washington of the Colts, that Monday night. He was totally versatile in his skills, like here, rolling left and then throwing the option pass deep downfield to Roger Carr, touchdown. But the coup de grace was administered by Washington here on a kickoff return. And a touchdown run that won the game for the injury-riddled Baltimore Colts. Colts didn't stop with that upset, however. On Upset Sunday, this past Sunday, they shocked the Denver Broncos. Tommy Jackson tipping the pass, Glenn Doughty picking it off, and the Colts hung on for a 7-6 victory. Oakland, having a tough time, fell to Seattle 27-7. Oakland and Denver now lead the AFC West by just 1 game over Seattle. But they've been upsettable all year, and John Madden is very upset with the Raiders' unsteady play. 2 teams that looked like they might not lose all year also went down. The Rams to the New Orleans Saints when Manning threw to Galbraith, who went down the sideline for the game-winning touchdown. And then the last time you looked at Earl Campbell on a Monday night, you saw this just last Monday. Campbell spurting for 3 touchdowns as Houston upset the Pittsburgh Steelers 24-17. So after 8 weeks of this extraordinary season, there are no longer any undefeated teams, but Pittsburgh and Los Angeles presently on top. So they're heading for a showdown, those 2 teams, a couple of weeks hence, right here on ABC. if the season holds true to form, it'll be a season that no one will want to miss. Game by game down the road. And the pivot game at this moment, LA against Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah, because we had some problems for the last 2 weeks defensively. Last week against the run, and then 2 weeks ago against the pass. And tonight, I thought we played well against both the run and the pass. We had more gang tackling, and Joe Washington presents some problems to you, and he made us miss a few times. But overall, I just sensed that we had a lot of people around our runners, and we're really after them. Our pass defense was sharp, and we came up with some interceptions and had some turnovers defensively, and it was much improved defense.
Well, we just were very down after last week during this week of practice, and what we tried to do this week is to get out of that feeling. We realize we've got some talent here on this defense, and if we just play with some consistency and play together, you know, we can play better than what we did last week. What we had out there was a good combination of things. You know, our defensive backs and linebackers did a heck of a job, you know, in passing situations, covering the receivers. And I think we as linemen did a pretty good job, you know, rushing the passer this week. It was a combination of both things. When the coverage maybe was a little lax, we had the pressure, and vice versa. When our pressure was a little lax, they had the coverage. And it was a total aspect type of defense, and you know, this is what we're striving for, and I just hope that we can continue it.
You know, we needed a game like this. Everyone played well. You know, it was a strong showing. We had some breakdowns that are going to have to be worked on, you know, for next week. But overall, I think it was a pretty good defensive game for us. It gives us the confidence that we need going into a game against Dallas. If you know, after the game last week against New England, the defense was a little down this week, and we knew we had to get it back for these next two games, Baltimore and Dallas. And a game like this helps, just, you know, to build the confidence back up. I played, you know, good at times, and other times I didn't play so good. You know, Tuesday we'll see the films, and I'll just see what I did wrong and try to improve, and you know, hopefully have another good game next week.
It's been this kind of year for the Baltimore Colts. The Miami Dolphins lining it up for a field goal. Don Strock pulls it away from the foot of Garo Yepremian. He rolls right and over the heads of the blue defenders. He throws to Vern Den Herder for a touchdown. Even a defensive end scores on the Colts this year. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our NFL 78 studios. I'm Brian Gumble. Mike Adamle is in our highlight center. We're starting the second half of the season. It's week 9. We'll try to get you caught up. There was a slaughter in New England today at Foxborough. The Patriots just beat up all over the Jets, 55-21, 526 yards of total offense. Mike Adamle has a very, very long highlight package for us. They didn't do anything wrong today, the Patriots.
Well, they sure didn't. If you are a New York Jet fan, I suggest you leave the room right now, because what you're about to see isn't very pretty. 8 touchdowns and 55 points. This was number 1. Steve Grogan firing to Harold Jackson. This made it 7-0. Grogan once again to Stanley Morgan, 14-0. Horace Ivory scores touchdown number 3, makes it 21-zip. The Jets came back and scored one of their own, 21-7. Here's touchdown number 4, Horace Ivory again, 28-7. Touchdown number 5, Grogan to Harold Jackson, 34-7. Touchdown number 6, Russ Francis, 41-7. Touchdown number 7, James McAllister. And touchdown number 8, James McAllister again. Final score 55-21. And Walt Michaels got to go back to the drawing board.
Very monotonous report there, Mike. Washington Redskins had lost 2 in a row coming into today, so they started Billy Kilmer, beat San Francisco 38-20. Kilmer was 12 for 23, 185 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Kansas City against Pittsburgh, the Steelers were hoping for a romp. Instead, they were hanging on for dear life at the end, won at 27-24. Mike, I guess when you have the kind of class that the Steelers do and the number of good athletes they do, even when you have an off day, you've got enough to get by.
Yeah, Kansas City played very well. They ran the wing T to perfection. It just wasn't enough. At this point in the game, the Kansas City Chiefs are trailing 20-3, and then they get the wing T in gear. Number 22, Ted McKnight, long strides it into the end zone to make it 20-10. Then Tony Reed does his touchdown thing. Watch the block of Bob Simmons, 73 here. Screens out Larry Anderson, 30. Mike Wagner gets tangled up, and so does Jack Lambert. Tony Reed reads the block extremely well, cuts back to his right. There goes Steve Furness out of bounds, and he scores to make it 20-17. Chiefs in the ball game until right here. 35, Horace Belton. The ball is stripped. Picked up by 31, Donnie Shell. He goes into the end zone to make it 27-24. First touchdown in Donnie Shell careers, and the Pittsburgh Steelers stay on top of the AFC Central 8-1. The story in Cleveland, well, Brian Sipe had been maligned as of late because of his passing, but this week he did very well. 3 touchdown passes, 2 to Reggie Rucker. Here is number 2 right here. Number 35 is going to catch this touchdown pass, and watch this reception. One-handed, Calvin Hill, 2 touchdowns of the day. 14-0, and then Mike Pruitt, a number 1 draft choice from Purdue in 1976, goes 71 yards. Nobody's going to touch him. Big day for Cleveland Brown fans and Sam Rutigliano. They're back in the thick of the AFC Central race.
Okay, Mike, you know it's strange to talk about Bud Wilkinson as accomplishing a first of anything this late in his career. It's been such a fabulous career, but he actually did accomplish a first today. NFL victory number 1 for Bud Wilkinson as coach of the St. Louis Cardinals. Today they beat the Philadelphia Eagles 16-10. The Cardinals are now 1-8, and the Eagles sink 1 game below the 500 level after 9 outings. Houston against Cincinnati, it's also victory number 1 for the victory-starved Bengals. They go 1-8, beating up on Houston 28-13. Earl Campbell, 19 carries for 103 yards. Another fabulous outing by a fabulous rookie, but it was the Bengals today who actually got a couple of touchdowns on the ground. Mike, what happened? Just finally putting it together?
Well, first of all, congratulations to Homer Rice. Really, the story, Bryant, was the story of Kenny Anderson and Isaac Curtis and Billy Brooks. They came back and played like they did last year. Curtis had 130 yards in receptions alone. Anderson, in the 3rd quarter, is going to hand the ball off to a rookie, Dave Turner from San Diego State, who's replacing Archie Griffin. Watch him go 65 yards before 19. There he is, Willie Alexander pulls him down and set up a 1-yard touchdown run by Pete Johnson. Here comes the last Bengal touchdown of the day. Kenny Anderson, I said he had a great day. Look at those stats. And he hits Mr. Isaac Curtis, and Mr. Curtis just turns on the jet, runs away from everybody. The first win for the Cincinnati Bengals. It's too bad they didn't start out that way in week number 1.
Okay, Mike. The Giants went down to the Superdome looking for a win, but it's tough for any team besides the Saints to win down there. The Saints put up 21 points in the second half, came on to beat the Giants 28-17. Archie Manning 13 for 21, 166 yards, 2 touchdown strikes, both to Henry Childs. Detroit against Chicago. The Bears have now lost 6 straight as the Lions win their 2nd in a row. The final was 21-17. Walter Payton, 89 yards, 18 carries, but again, it was Gary Danielson having a big day for the Lions, 20 for 32, 190 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Tampa Bay against Green Bay. The Packers pulled this one out in the final moments, 9-7 at home. They go 7-2. Chester Markle, a 48-yard field goal with 41 seconds left, provided the difference. San Diego against Oakland. Remember the fumble game that Oakland won in the final moments? Well, the Raiders are making sure this time. They're out in front 20-7 at the half. Mike, how are they doing it? Has Stabler gotten over that his propensity to throw interceptions that he showed last week?
Yeah, he's playing well, and a fake field goal helped too. Both teams coming off embarrassing losses last week, and it was the Chargers that got on the board first in this contest in Oakland, Alameda County Stadium. Watch number 37, Hank Bauer, take this handoff from Dan Fouts. He barges through the middle of the line. Look at that block by Russ Washington, number 70, and he's going to drag Mr. Jack Tatum into the end zone. You don't do that very often. 7-0 in favor of the Chargers. Later on in the first quarter, 4th and 6, here's that fake field goal attempt I was telling you about. Mr. David Hum, the holder, fires to Dave Casper, keeping the drive alive, and it set up this play. 3rd and 11. Kenny Stabler back to pass. He finds Mr. Casper over the middle. He does the rest of the work. Man missed the extra point to make it 7-6. And Arthur Winnington rambles right here. 26 yards, good open field running. He's been a real find for Al Davis and Johnny Madden. In Miami, the Dolphins had to win today to keep pace with the New England Patriots, and they're doing just that. They're playing very well. Bokamper has a block kick for a safety.
Okay, Mike, that Miami game now stands at 26-6 in the third quarter. Mike Kirkland had to start that game for the Colts. Burt Jones, of course, still suffering with that busted shoulder. And in the big one going on right now, it is a surprise. Last week, the Seahawks beat the Raiders. This week, they are beating the Denver Broncos. It stands 14-10 at the half. Zorn to Sam McCullum, 44 yards. Morton to Rick Upchurch of 29 yards. And the Seahawks trying now for a share of first in the AFC West. This 1978 National Football League game is brought to you by Schlitz. Beer makes it good, Schlitz makes it great. And by Dodge and your Dodge dealer, who invites you to come in and see why people are saying, hey, that's my Dodge. Bryant Gumbel back one more time in New York. Quickly, let's run down the scores of week number 9 as we start the second half. New England beat up all over the Jets today. The final there, 55-21, 8 TDs for the Pats. Washington, 38-20 over San Francisco as Billy Kilmer got a start. Pittsburgh just got by the Kansas City Chiefs. The final there, 27-24. Cleveland, a big outing for Brian Sipe and company, 41-20 after 2 straight losses for them. St. Louis finally gets a win on the board, 16-10 over the Eagles. That one an upset. Another first-time victory goes to Homer Rice and the Bengals. They won 28-13 today over Houston despite Earl Campbell's 100-yard-plus rushing day. New Orleans beats the Giants. The final there, 28-7 as the Saints put 21 on the board in the second half. Detroit beat Chicago 21-17, 6 straight losses for the Bears. Green Bay beat Tampa Bay 9-7. Mark Hole a field goal with 41 seconds left. Oakland out in front of San Diego, that one 20-7. That ball game at the half. Miami 26-6 over Baltimore in the third period. And Seattle out in front 14-10 over Denver Broncos. That one at the half. We've got a second half of action coming up. We'll get to it after a commercial break.
The New England Patriots simply exploded in the first half, scoring 41 points and rolling up 526 yards total offense. Quarterback Steve Grogan was unstoppable in the first 30 minutes. He completed 15 of 19 passes for 282 yards and 4 touchdowns. Harold Jackson was on the receiving end of 2 of those scoring aerials. The other touchdown passes were to Stanley Morgan for 30 yards and Russ Francis for 11. Horace Ivory, the thorn in Miami's side all last week, also scored twice in the first half on runs of 7 and 9 yards. James McAllister scored 2 second-half touchdowns for the Pats, who after this 55-21 rout remain atop the AFC East with a 7-2 record. Well, the Cincinnati Bengals have finally won a game, and the Houston Oilers, who had just climbed back into the AFC Central race after beating Pittsburgh last Monday night, have to be wondering why it was against them. Ken Anderson's 45-yard touchdown pass to Isaac Curtis and 2 one-yard scoring runs by Pete Johnson paced the Bengals to the 28-13 win. Also making an appearance in the win column for the first time this year will be the St. Louis Cardinals. They upset the Eagles 16-10 in Philadelphia. A 55-yard touchdown pass from the ailing Jim Hart to rookie Dave Stieff and a 7-yard touchdown run by Jim Otis proved to be the difference as 62-year-old Bud Wilkinson picks up his first NFL victory as head coach. And the Washington Redskins have ended a 2-game skid, and it was the return of Billy Kilmer at quarterback that lifted the Skins to their 38-20 win over the 49ers. Billy Kilmer, making his first start of the year, led Washington back from a 10-0 first-quarter deficit with 2 touchdown passes, including this 50-yard toss to Danny Buggs. John Riggins added 2 touchdowns on 1-yard runs, and former Gator Tony Green also found pay dirt. The win puts Washington in sole possession of first place in the NFC East with a 7-2 record. The Packers eked out a 9-7 win over Tampa Bay and remained 2 games up on the Vikings in the NFC Central. Chester Markle kicked a 48-yard field goal with 41 seconds left to win it for Green Bay.
I can see the trend of a team, way back, but it's pretty hard to convince anybody of what your trend is, players or anybody else. But when you lose a game or 2 or 3, and we lost another one the other night that was a very poor performance, then you have to say, well, it's time we better move if we're going to go anyplace, or we'll be home at Christmas. We've done a lot of things fairly well, and we've done some things not quite as well as we would like. I think probably offensively, our inconsistency of moving the ball, we've been #1 offensive team in yardage for most of the season, yet we're not really moving effectively to get in to score the touchdowns or kick the field goal. Defensively, we played very well at times. We've been inconsistent at times, but we played very well at times. The kicking game's been improving. We're playing our kicking game better now than we have all year, so there are some positive notes, but I think the main thing is to be able to beat a good team like Miami or some of these that are coming up. If we do, then I think we'll have a chance to move on.